Welcome to Pods with Posh and Paul, a podcast designed to inspire and challenge listeners through story, experience and insight. To face adversity, learn from suffering and discover how to embrace life with a heart filled with love and gratitude. We are so thrilled to have you journey with us and can't wait to share your stories. Join Sue O'Callaghan and Joanne Webb as we disrupt the theory that everyone has perfect lives.
The issue is when a child comes to you, Mum, I really don't want to do the cross-country day. It's not, that's the problem. Actually, the discussion is around, well, how do we solve it? What's the solution? How do we work through it?
Failures, disappointments and pain are part of life. It's our responsibility as parents to help our children deal with all of that.
Hi, thanks for listening. This is Jo and Sue from Pods with Posh and Pool and Impact Mental Health. Impact Mental Health offers resilience-based education programs for parents and educators. This is just a small snippet of what's discussed in the upcoming talks Preparing for the Teen Years, It's Never Too Early.
We are delighted to be chatting to primary school parents. And our talk is called Preparing for the Teen Years, It's Never Too Early. Because, Jo, why?
Why, oh why, oh why? Well, Sue, both of us deal a lot with teenagers, don't we? And what we're seeing, the current trend is teenagers are full of anxiety, depression, various addictions, there's self-harm, there's all these awful things that these poor young people are having to go through. And don't get me wrong, we had to go through it when we were teenagers, or it was certainly around then too. But what we found is, we're both parents of 4 children each, ranging between 13 and 22. So we've done it, we've been there. And now we know more. We wish we'd kind of parented a little bit differently back when we had the chance. And so we can see that there's just some simple strategies that you can put in place now that will really help you and your children for the future. Just really good foundational strategies.
So basically what we're saying is, if you listen to the media, if you watch teens in the street and you haven't gone there yet, or you don't have nieces and nephews that have been teens, it's quite frightening looking ahead. You've got young children, they're sort of 3, 5 and 7 maybe, and they'll come for comfort, they'll have conversations with you, they trust you, you're their security and safety, stability, and you think your child is never going to turn into a Rottweiler. You've got this beautiful little puppy dog, but one day they will turn into a teenager. But you also want to avoid the critical years. We want healthy communication. What are the things that we really want to avoid in the teen years? We want to avoid device addiction. That's one of the things we hear about, isn't it? The kids are addicted to social media. They're in overwhelmed social media comparison. They've got poor communication skills. Teenagers do tend to grunt. As you say, we did a lot of the things ourselves, but we're living in a very different age nowadays. And we want you as parents to have the skills to give your children now when they're young to prevent them deteriorating in the teen years, because whatever you're building as a foundation now will last through the teen years. If you're not having conversations now, if you're not teaching resilience, then we are heading for disaster in the teen years. So today what we're going to do is give you a little snippet of the things that you can implement in the primary school years to build resilience in your children. So resilience is one of the topics out of poor communication, self-hatred, low self-esteem, addiction, coping mechanisms, and device overuse. We're just going to take the one and we're going to talk about how you can empower your children in resilience so that when in the teen years they have failed relationships, they have setbacks, they fail their exams, they feel hopeless, low self-esteem, they've got resilience to push through.
I think it's really important to understand as well, because teenagers, when they are in that stage, almost go back to being toddlers, don't they? So their brain goes a bit squiffy, it basically shuts down, it's all rewiring. They're going through a heck of a lot. And with anything in life, if we can make something a lifestyle, a good habit, if it's already there, when we're going through bad times, we don't have to remember it because it's already part of our neural pathways, and that's what we're trying to put in place. So one of the first things we would suggest, and what we see all the time, is celebrate failure. Make it failure a good thing, not a bad thing, not a shock horror thing in the family. And have a look at how you fail and what your reaction is when you fail. Because the biggest thing as parents, as well as we are role models, our children sometimes, we think they're not listening to a word we say because they don't like too many words, but they are always watching, they are always absorbing our energy. So how do you deal with failure? Are you a person who just gives in? Oh, well, I failed now, I've given up. Because that's what you're role modeling to your child. So bear in mind that. Are you somebody who fails and goes, right, great, let's try something new? Do you problem solve? And they're the two different ends of the spectrum, and then there's everywhere in between. What do you do? And how are we going to help our children along the way? Because we can change. We're not set in stone. We're not solid marble. We can change, but we have to make an effort to change. So let's help our children here and now. Do you agree, Sue?
I do totally, because I think if we're talking about resilience, we're talking about problem solving in the teen years, whether it's problem solving through addiction, self-harm, suicidal ideation, whether it's relationships, whether it's communication, it's whatever is going on in the teen years. It's all about problem solving. And so, as you say, if we can role model how we deal with it ourselves, and we can speak about, gosh, I failed 3 times yesterday and I've tried again and still failed, but I'm going to find a way through. And I've faced this problem now for 2 months, but I'm determined to find a solution. Gosh, isn't it amazing? Today I tried for the umpteenth time and I found a solution, always to push through, always to overcome, and problems will come our way in life. So talk about the fact also, I think, Jo, is the fact that problems are a part of life. And we are here to problem solve. So it's not the focus is not the problem, but how we solve it. The focus is not the fact your child is being bullied at school, has not done so well academically. The problem is always about how we're solving it. So the issue is when a child comes to you, Mum, I really don't want to do the cross-country day, it's not, that's the problem. Actually, the discussion is around, well, how do we solve it? What's the solution? How do we work through it? And so I would say, what is it your child at primary school is facing right now? What is the hardest issue for them? Is it friends? Is it cross-country day? Is it who they're sitting next to at school? Is it the teacher? Is it something going on outside of school? Is it the fact that they're not as good at netball as their friends? And actually work with that. Work with a problem to problem solve. I think you're spot on, Jo. Yeah, absolutely.
And it can be as little things as, like, when they're really tiny and they build a tower with bricks and it falls down, rather than going, oh no, it could be yay, let's see if we can make it stronger next time. Let's just see if we can push the top over. That's a bit wobbly. Let's make it a bit stronger next time. It's that learning how we go about it, celebrate the failures. And even if they're doing a spelling test in school and they get 7 out of 10, great. Let's have a look at the other 3 words. Let's break them down. Is there another way we can do it? Is there another way we can think about those words? I used to be a terrible speller. And, it's just how do we go about it in a different way. I think coming into that, especially when it comes to academic things and hitting things at certain milestones, understanding that your child is an individual and they're going to do things in their own time. And they're beautiful just as they are. But sometimes we just need to look outside the box to help them. And that definitely comes under that problem solving bracket, doesn't it?
Does as well. And I think also an expectation that we have of the situation. For example, is our child being bullied in year 4 at school? Our expectation is that our child is treated properly and that nobody's unkind to them. So we're coming in with an expectation about the situation. So we want to rescue it. We want to make it okay for our child. And that might be making it okay for us as parents, but it's not actually solving the situation for the child, because you want to look ahead for the teen years. You don't want to look at the situation right now. You obviously want to resolve it right now, but you want to think, how can I resolve this situation for my child right now, but also give them the skills to overcome the same situation, which will be magnified in the teen years, because it might be the whole peer group has rejected them as opposed to one friend. So let me use the situation, let me get over myself and my need to rescue my child and make it all okay, because we want to, don't we, Jo? We want to wrap our children in cotton wool. The worst thing for a parent is ever to see your child suffer. We acknowledge that. But if you can think long term, if I was to watch my child suffer, this magnified by 100 in the teen years, what can I give them now in this one situation to overcome it? So exactly everything you said, Jo. What is the solution? It's not worked out. Let's rebuild it a different way. Let's see if we can build a new friendship or build an old relationship that hasn't worked with new strategies. So it's always problem solving for long term, not problem solving just to put a plaster on it to make it okay for our child right now.
what would be your main tip to build resilience in a child?
Well, I think communication is really, really important. The conversations we're having all the time. So what you've said is really critical. How are we problem solving in our life so that children hear in their head, gosh, mum said that her relationship with dad right at the moment is really difficult, but she was going to have conversations to heal the relationship. She found work really difficult this week and can't resolve a particular relationship or problem, but she's going to stick at it until she finds it. And then when she finds it, she celebrates it. So that problems are a part of life. And resilience is about teaching children life is difficult, but there's fun times to have as well. But both are part of life. It's really important children understand what resilience is and how they can actually learn it. It's not something people are given, but they can actually learn resilience. One example, which I saw repeated again and again in primary schools when my 4 were at that level, was that a lot of children did hate the cross-country day, and parents would say, it's okay to have a sickie, come on, you can stay at home. And I would just say, encourage them to go, but ask, what is your why? What's the reason you're running? If it's to beat the child in the school that is the best runner in New Zealand, you're not going to win. You are going to fail. You're setting yourself up to fail. If you set your target, your why is, I'm going to beat my own personal best, then you can encourage your child to run with you maybe around the block a few times that previous week and time it. So what is your why is really important. What is your why in being a friend with a certain person? Is it because you'll feel left out, but you actually don't like them very much? Have the conversations all the time. Keep the line of communication open, empower them through the words that you say.
Yeah, I agree. And understand as a parent that pain, failure and disappointment are all parts of life. And as you said earlier, Sue, of course we see our lovely child and, you know, when they're tiny and they fall over, we pick them up and we don't want them to fall over, we don't want them to be hurt, we want to take all of that hurt away from them, we want it all to be rosy and lovely and happy and giggly. But that unfortunately just isn't life. And we can only do that to a certain point. And then actually we're setting ourselves up for failure as well as our child. You know, failures, disappointments and pain are part of life. It's our responsibility as parents to help our children deal with all of that. And isn't that the soul and the nucleus of resilience? Because that's what resilience is all about. It's about perseverance, adaptability, endurance. If you don't help your child to build endurance, then that's a part of the resilience which is going to fail. If you don't help them to adapt to a situation, if you don't show them what perseverance is, to dig in and to try something, because you know what, we're not all good at everything and we do have to try hard, and it actually really helps us in life when we do that. And it helps them as teenagers, because as teenagers they are going to go straight back into thinking they are not good enough, they are rubbish at everything, they're going to second guess themselves, they're going to question everything about themselves, their self-worth, their self-respect, their self-love is going to be on a tangent. It's going to be all questionable. But if we have set them up with good grounding, solid foundations, and they know who they are, and they know they can do it, then that grit and determination will be remembered somewhere in their brain.
Jo, that's so important. And the words you used, adaptability, perseverance and endurance, are critical, aren't they, in resilience? And I think to ask a question, how is this helping my child? Let's take 3 obvious situations. Your child's forgotten their packed lunch. They haven't remembered to take a certain kit into school for PE, or they've forgotten their homework and they missed the school bus. And we step in really quickly. We jump them in the car, drive them to the school gates. We drop off their packed lunch. We drop off their PE kit. We drop off the homework that they forgot because they're going to get into trouble. Long term, what you're teaching them is, when I get it wrong, when I forget something, when I fail, there's somebody there that will rescue me. And in the teen years, your child will turn to an unhealthy relationship with maybe a sexual partner to meet their needs. They will look outside of themselves to find the solutions to the problems, Jo, that you're talking about. What we want to do is empower your child to find the solution internally in themselves with that voice. I can do it. I missed the school bus. I'll walk to school and I'll be late and I'll face the head teacher or the detention, whatever it is, because we want them to have that voice in their head. I can do this. When life gets really troublesome in the teen years, we don't want them opting out. We don't want the suicidal ideation, the self-harm, the eating disorders. We want them to have that voice in the head. I've done it before. I can do it again. So empower them in situations that will be tough for them. None of us want our child to be late for school or face the teacher when they haven't got their homework and they've actually done it the night before. We want to rescue. But how is that empowering your teen in adult life?
I agree. And this is just one subject of many, and all of the subjects are very interlinked, aren't they, Sue?
Yeah.
So when we go out and we do our talks to primary school parents, and the talk, as we said, is called Preparing for the Teen Years, It's Never Too Early. We cover many other topics, don't we? We cover communication, healthy relationships, boundaries, and a few others, but they are all very interlinked. And resilience is kind of the underlying pin of all of them, and everything thrown in the bucket creates resilience. So that's why we thought we'd just pick this one out today for the podcast.
Yeah, and we also have a really good talk, which we'll take into primary schools, which is coping mechanisms. What is your child's coping mechanisms and how can you empower them to develop healthy coping mechanisms? Because if we don't survive, we die psychologically, emotionally, or literally. So in terms of teen years coping mechanisms, we want them to have healthy coping mechanisms. So what can you implement in the younger years in primary school? How can you talk about coping mechanisms? How can you talk about why we cope, why we try and survive? It's survival of the fittest, and what you can give to your primary school children now so that in teen years they are really empowered and have healthy lives. We would love you to book onto one of our parenting talks in primary schools. We'll be doing a tour of the country later this year, early 2022. We've got some really good podcasts as well on all sorts of topics, from resilience to finding self-love to coping mechanisms to healthy boundaries. Our talks are all on Eventbrite, so pop onto Eventbrite. And we also have a book,
Hate Myself, Hate My Life, a teenage guide to finding self-confidence and inner love, which is available through our website or on all normal sites like Amazon and Book Lovers and Fish Pond, etc., around the world. And the reviews you've had are just awesome.
The book isn't just for teenagers, so we've now got it into half of high school New Zealand libraries, but parents are saying this is a book for parents, and definitely a book for primary school parents to read, because it covers healthy boundaries, communications, coping mechanisms, self-love, all the things we've been talking about just now. And as you say, Jo, amazing reviews. Teens review it and say this is like a hug. And then Nathan Wallace has reviewed it to say he wished he'd had the book when he was young. He's a neuroscience educator. So incredible reviews. So if you haven't got a copy and you've got primary school age children, then do please get a copy. And also encourage your friends to get a copy as well, because it is changing lives, and school counsellors are getting hold of copies as well to give it to their students.
Thanks so much for listening. We really do hope you found this useful. If you'd like more information on our talks, podcasts or book, please go to our website www.impact-mentalhealth.com. Thanks so much for being with us today. For us to inspire others to live their magnificently imperfect life, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or on your podcast app. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Pods with Posh and Pool. We can't wait for you to join us on our next episode. Love, light and peace.